7 ruthless rules stand between you and a mind that cannot be disturbed. In a world that constantly tests your composure, your confidence, and your control, have you ever felt manipulated by someone's words, shaken by criticism, or emotionally pulled in directions you later regretted? It can feel like strength requires constant defense. But what if real power is not about fighting harder, but about becoming impossible to unsettle in the first place? Tonight, we examine 7 strategic principles inspired by Machiavellian thinking that will harden your discipline, sharpen your perception, and make external pressure irrelevant. Listen carefully, because the final rule is what separates surface confidence from true mental sovereignty. Your emotions. Let's look at them closely. Most people handle their feelings like something fragile, reacting quickly and letting pressure spill out at the smallest trigger. But real strength is not about reacting, it is about containment. Think of a strong engine. It does not burst under pressure. It directs that pressure with precision and turns it into movement. When your emotions are exposed carelessly, people notice. And once they notice, they learn where to press. They test the weak areas again and again. If you want to become mentally untouchable, you must first gain control over what happens inside you. Learn to steady your reactions, contain your responses, seal what leaks. When pressure comes, use it. And when others look for your weakness, give them nothing to work with. Most people lose control long before the real battle even begins. To master your emotions, you must build a pause between what happens and how you respond. Think of it as a mental clutch, something that allows you to shift gears instead of reacting instantly. When emotion rises, observe it the way you would notice a warning light on a dashboard. A signal, not a command. Step back internally. Watch the feeling without becoming it. Like a meteorologist studying a storm from a protected room. The storm is real. The wind is strong. But you are not inside it. You are observing it. And that distance changes everything. When you control the space between stimulus and response, you control yourself. And that control is the foundation of psychological strength. Validation. The need for approval can quietly weaken you more than you realize. When your sense of worth depends on other people's praise, your direction starts to shift toward whatever earns their approval. You become predictable, easy to influence, always adjusting yourself for another moment of recognition. That is unstable fuel. It burns quickly and leaves you empty. Real strength is built from within, not borrowed from others. When you become your own source of validation, you remove one of the strongest levers people can use against you. Refine your standards. Define your worth privately. Let your confidence come from discipline, not applause. That is when control returns to you. The need for approval is the first chain you must break. So, how do you detach from this constant need for approval? How do you build your own internal source of strength? You begin with action. You deliberately choose to act according to your own judgment, even when you know others may not agree. Especially then. At first it feels uncomfortable, like driving off the smooth road and onto rough terrain. The path is uneven. There is no applause guiding you, no reassurance that you are doing it right. But the more distance you cover this way, the more confident you become in your own direction. You start building proof for yourself. Create a small goal that demands discipline. Keep it private. Something that requires focus and effort, but no audience. And then complete it. quietly. Do not announce it. Do not seek recognition. Simply sit with the result. Feel the steady satisfaction of following through on your own decision. That quiet approval you give yourself is powerful. It strengthens something internal that no crowd can give or take away. Over time, that internal reinforcement becomes more reliable than public praise ever was. And as you continue, you must also learn to tolerate disapproval without collapsing under it. That is the next test. The next time someone criticizes you, disagrees with you, or simply ignores you, pause. Do not rush to repair it. Do not explain yourself immediately. Do not justify. Do not apologize just to restore comfort. Let their opinion exist without interference. Let it stay in the air. Then turn your attention inward. Notice the reaction inside you, the tension, the urge to correct the situation, the need to regain approval. And instead of acting on it, do nothing. Let the discomfort move through you. This is training. You are teaching your nervous system that you can exist without constant agreement. That silence does not mean danger. That disapproval does not mean collapse. The more you endure that space without reacting, the more stable you become. Your sense of power stops depending on external signals. It no longer rises and falls with praise or criticism. It becomes steady, self-sustained. You begin to feel less exposed, less influenced. People may still talk, they may praise or condemn, but your internal state remains operational. Your direction remains intact. You are no longer reacting to every move. You are observing the game from a position of stability, and when you stop playing their emotional game, you remove their leverage over you. Enduring disapproval is the doorway to real authority. If staying calm under pressure is something you struggle with, my ebook, The Art of Strategic Indifference, goes deeper into how to detach, stay unreadable, and stop reacting emotionally when others try to provoke you. The link is in the description. Betrayal hurts. Someone you trusted reaches the place you left unguarded, and the impact is sharp. But what if you looked at it differently? What if, instead of replaying the pain, you treated it like information, like a report that shows you exactly where your structure was weak? Every surge of anger can become a question instead of a reaction. Where did I misjudge? Where was the gap? What did I overlook? The person who betrayed you has revealed something important about your defenses. They exposed a flaw you might never have noticed on your own. That is uncomfortable, but it is useful. If you study it instead of resisting it, you now have the blueprint to reinforce your position. And once reinforced, that same weakness cannot be used against you again. What feels like betrayal is often the beginning of clarity. Your enemies can teach you more than your friends ever will. Friends may soften the truth to protect you. An enemy does not. They press directly on what hurts. They test what is unstable. They expose weaknesses without hesitation. That exposure is uncomfortable, but it is honest. Their actions show you where you must improve, not in theory, but in reality. Instead of reacting defensively, listen carefully to what their behavior reveals. Look past the hostility and study the pattern. There is information inside every attack. If you use that information wisely, their criticism becomes instruction. And when you correct what they exposed, the result is not just survival, it is advancement. In the end, their pressure becomes your training, and your progress becomes the answer they did not expect. In a world where everyone is trying to be noticed, attention becomes cheap. People announce their plans, display their progress, and compete for visibility. But real power rarely makes noise. It moves quietly. It observes before it acts. When you work in silence, you remove unnecessary pressure and distraction. You focus on development instead of display. Let your effort remain private. Let your discipline build without commentary. When results finally appear, they speak with far more force than words ever could. By the time others recognize what you have built, the foundation is already solid. And what seems sudden to them was deliberate all along. Silence is not absence, it is preparation. If you value psychological strategy and mental discipline, consider subscribing. Building power in silence is not only about hiding your plans, it is about protecting your growth. When you constantly look for feedback, for approval, for reactions, your attention becomes divided. You step out of deep focus and into performance, and performance weakens development. Every time you explain your progress to others, you interrupt the process itself. Imagine trying to assemble something precise and delicate while surrounded by noise and distraction. It would be nearly impossible. Serious growth requires quiet. It requires concentration without an audience. Silence also protects you. When you do not advertise your strengths, you avoid attracting premature challenges. If you announce your superiority too early, competition appears immediately. People test you before you are fully prepared. But if you remain observant, if you practice privately, if you sharpen your skills without display, something different happens. When you finally step forward, you are not scrambling to defend your reputation. You are prepared. Others see only the result. They do not see the preparation behind it, and that difference gives you advantage before the game even begins. When you work quietly, you gain something most people overlook: surprise. And surprise is often priceless. If others do not know your intentions, they cannot prepare against them. If they cannot see your strategy forming, they cannot disrupt it. Information is advantage. When you reveal less, you protect more. While others compete loudly and draw attention to themselves, you remain unnoticed. They focus on visible rivals, reacting to what is obvious. Meanwhile, you are securing resources, strengthening connections, and positioning yourself carefully. Think about it this way. In a field of loud competitors, the quiet one moves differently. There is less resistance because there is less awareness. When you finally act, it feels sudden to everyone else. Not because you rushed, but because they were distracted. That is the value of operating below the surface. So allow the shadows to work for you. Use privacy as protection. Develop your skills without constant display. Build alliances discreetly. Let others chase attention while you build structure. When your position is deep and well prepared, it does not need noise to appear strong. And when you eventually step forward, it will not feel like you entered the spotlight. It will feel as if your presence was inevitable all along. Most people view adversity as something negative, something to escape as quickly as possible. But the mentally untouchable see it differently. They understand that difficulty is training. It is the place where resilience is built. Just as steel is strengthened through heat, character is strengthened through pressure. Pressure is not always punishment. It is often preparation. It forces adaptation. It exposes weakness and demands growth. When conditions are calm, Anyone can appear confident. The real test comes when circumstances become unstable. How you think in chaos reveals who you are. Adversity forces you to refine your focus, control your reactions, and sharpen your discipline. Each challenge strengthens your tolerance. Each setback builds endurance. Over time, what once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable, and that shift is where unbreakable strength is formed. Pressure does not break you unless you resist learning from it. Resilience means you recover after being knocked down. But there is something stronger than that. Anti-fragility means you improve because of the pressure. Instead of simply returning to where you were, you rise above it. Every setback becomes a signal, a moment to adjust, refine, and strengthen. When something cracks, it shows you where reinforcement is needed. And once reinforced, that same force cannot break you again in the same way. Do not aim only to endure chaos. Learn to extract value from it. Let instability sharpen you. Let disruption force growth. When you train yourself to gain strength from difficulty, adversity loses its threat. It becomes material, and you begin to transform challenges into upgrades rather than injuries. That is the shift from surviving pressure to benefiting from it. Lesson 6 is detachment. This does not mean surrender. It means understanding that outcomes are never fully in your control. You can plan carefully, prepare thoroughly, refine every detail, and still, events may shift without warning. The world does not rearrange itself around your intentions. That realization is not pessimistic, it is stabilizing. True power comes when your sense of worth is no longer tied to the final result. If your identity depends on winning, you become fragile. But if your focus is on execution, on discipline, on the quality of your effort, you remain steady regardless of outcome. The reward is not the trophy. It is the standard you held yourself to during the process. When you detach from the result, you remove fear. And when fear is removed, clarity remains. In high-stakes situations, most people become attached to the result. They want the deal so badly that it shows. Their need clouds their judgment. Their emotions rise. Their leverage weakens. But the true strategist remains detached. He is prepared to walk away if necessary. That willingness creates power. When you are not desperate for the outcome, you see more clearly. You read the entire board instead of focusing on one move. This calm is not indifference. It is controlled patience. A steady awareness that waits for the right moment instead of forcing one. Detachment gives you space to think while others react. It allows you to remain balanced when the environment becomes tense. When you can stand in the center of chaos without being pulled by it, your position becomes stronger than anyone who is emotionally entangled, and that stillness becomes your advantage. Detachment is the point where fear loses its authority. Most people seek the safety of belonging. It feels secure to move with the group, to follow familiar patterns, to think the way everyone else thinks. But the herd moves in predictable ways. It reacts together. It fears together. And that predictability makes it easy to influence. To stand alone is uncomfortable. You may be misunderstood. You may even be rejected. Yet isolation brings clarity. When you are not guided by collective emotion, your judgment sharpens. You act based on your own assessment, not on shared panic or shared excitement. That independence makes you difficult to read. And when others cannot predict your next move, they cannot easily control it. True independence is not about arguing with everyone or trying to prove you are different. It is about building a mind that can stand on its own foundation. Your principles become your structure. Your reasoning becomes your defense. Your self-respect becomes the standard you operate by. When that structure is strong, you no longer depend on the crowd to confirm your direction. Approval becomes optional, not necessary. You remain engaged with the world. You participate. You observe. But internally, you remain sovereign. Your decisions come from your own judgment, not from pressure or applause. That is what makes you difficult to influence. When your mind is governed from within, you become steady under pressure. And when you are steady, you become mentally untouchable. So there it is, 7 lessons. They are not designed to make you popular. They are not meant to make life comfortable. This is not a guide to easy approval or surface-level happiness. It is a framework for building a mind that does not break under pressure, a will that does not bend with opinion, and a spirit that cannot be taken captive. This is about sovereignty over the only territory you truly own, the space inside your mind. When you control your emotions, you take control of your direction. When you reject the need for validation, you free yourself from being shaped by others. When you turn betrayal into insight, you transform harm into strength. When you build in silence, you understand that power does not require witnesses. When you use adversity as training, you stop fearing pressure and start benefiting from it. When you detach from outcomes, you think clearly instead of anxiously. And when you stand alone without fear, you remove the final lever anyone can use against you. These are not isolated tactics. They reinforce each other. Together they form structure, stability, a mental fortress that does not collapse when tested. And once that structure is built, it becomes extremely difficult for anyone to penetrate. True sovereignty begins the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. Each lesson strengthens the others. Together, they create disciplined self-command. The world will test that structure constantly. It will send emotion, pressure, setbacks, and manipulation to search for weaknesses. It will tempt you with comfort. It will offer approval in exchange for compliance. It will make independence uncomfortable and conformity easy. The path of a mentally untouchable person is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is daily. It is the steady discipline of observing your thoughts and choosing your responses with intention. This is not about dominating the world. That pursuit belongs to those who misunderstand power. It is about mastering yourself, about maintaining control over your reactions, your standards, and your direction no matter what unfolds externally. Betrayals may come, failures may occur, circumstances may shift without warning, but when the structure inside you is stable, those events do not dismantle you. The highest form of power is not ruling others. It is refusing to be ruled by emotion, pressure, or circumstance. When you achieve that, you remain steady regardless of chaos. And that steadiness is what makes you truly untouchable. If this strengthened your mindset, leave a like. Share your thoughts in the comments. Send this video to someone who needs mental armor. Subscribe for more lessons on power, strategy, and psychological resilience. And watch the next video, because these principles become stronger when you connect them together.